Welcome to Leadership Bites with myself, your host, Guy Bloom. This is a leadership podcast where I have conversations with colleagues, I chat with guests, and sometimes there'll be just me talking. You can connect with me at livingbrave.com, and when you enjoy the episode, subscribe and please tell everyone. So, Mike, how are you?
Hi, Guy. How are you?
Well, great to have you on this episode of Leadership Bites. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So listen, we've known each other for a little while, kind of through various conversations, and it'll become clearer as we go through that I was going to say you're I'm a patient of yours. I don't know if that would be the right term.
Yeah,
a client.
Right. Yeah,
a client, I think.
We like client.
That would be,
it covers all bases.
Yeah, I think clients are a much better way of looking at it. So I know who you are, but let's just get you to introduce yourself, and then we'll get into a whole load of questions that I'm waiting to ask.
That's fine. So I'm Mike Kocsis. I'm the founder of Balance My Hormones and also the Hormonist Pharmacy. And I started in 2016 to help men and women who had hormone issues and difficulty getting access to the hormone treatments from more traditional sources like the NHS or other private options. So I founded it. It's been my passion, and it's something that I've done to make a difference in people's lives.
So this is a topic that, so I'm really clear, I am a client of yours, and it was, I'm not even going to say game changer for me, I'm going to say life changer for me, which is why I A, am a client, but also B, what I recognise in dealing with in the leadership space, why is this on a leadership podcast, is because I deal with a lot of people who are inverted commas senior and often older. Yep. And as a coach and an observer of human beings, I observe certain things that I am actually able to say, I think there might be something else going on here, and I think you might want to look into it. So that's how actually it's sort of come into my kind of purview to saying, do you know what, let's put this out there, and if it helps one person, and I think this conversation will help a lot of people, so that's the catalyst for me, getting you on.
Appreciate it.
So with that in mind, let's just start off, I guess, at the basics of there's maybe a great sense from people when you hear testosterone replacement and HRT. I think HRT for women is much more acceptable as a statement. I think sometimes when you say TRT, people kind of almost go, like bodybuilding, growth hormone. I think that side of things has got a bit of a misnomer. So maybe if I could just get you to give a little bit of a let's explain the vocabulary to people.
Yeah, that's
so
fair enough.
Know where we're coming from.
So I mean, it's unfortunate just getting back to the conflation between bodybuilding and testosterone. Yes, we'll start with testosterone replacement therapy. I said it can be considered a form of hormone replacement therapy, but there are other forms of hormone replacement therapy, such as thyroid replacement therapy, or your adrenal gland replacement, which would be cortisol, or estrogen if you're female through HRT. But and females can also get a form of TRT as well when they go through menopause. The sex hormones aren't what they once were, so estrogens replace progesterone and testosterone. So, but for men, I think we tend to define it as testosterone replacement therapy, and that can consist of, well, as the label says, testosterone treatment and coaching and support. That usually goes into it, because as you start testosterone treatment, yes, it consists of either an injection or a cream, but then there is the guidance portion of it that helps men through it. So I think, getting back to your question, the overriding factor in society is they hear the word testosterone, and it sets some people off down the wrong path, and they think, oh, like you said, bodybuilding, and you can see I was in that in the article in the Daily Mail. I don't know if you saw, where they interviewed me about testosterone replacement therapy. I've been on the treatment for 26 years, but unfortunately they conflated it and made it as if this was done not for a health reason, but for bodybuilding purposes. And I had to go on another program, the Kevin O'Sullivan program, to kind of dispel some of those myths. And I also on my own YouTube channel had to do the same, because it's not what it is. But I can't force society to change their views just yet. I hope they are changing, but this is the way it is. But what we do at Balance for Hormones is helping men and women with hormone replacement and men with testosterone replacement.
Okay, and I think this is really important because, for example, CBD is a CBD or is a thing that's come into the consciousness a lot more. And I've said, and for those of you that don't know, it's a fantastic. You can get it at Holland and Barrett, and
Yep.
you can order it. It's absolutely fine, but it's got the word cannabis in it,
Yep.
and so people can go a little bit bonkers about it. But all the kind of all the stuff's been taken out of it, so it helps just with inflammation. Now, but if you say it and use the word cannabis, people can have a reaction to it.
Yeah.
So I think the last few years there has been I think we are on the brink of people going, or the education, I think, around the vocabulary. Coca-Cola used to have Coke in it. Don't
Yeah.
worry, it doesn't now.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to have these conversations. So I think this would really help then if we went into why would I, for example, I'm 53 years old, and I don't know how many years it is now that I've been with you. It must be 3 or 4 years now,
Yeah, at least.
At least. So rather than me, and I will at some point, but just why would let's just talk about why would somebody think to themselves, I might have a problem with my testosterone? What would be the indicators that maybe should be an alarm bell for them to pay attention to?
I think some of the most important ones, we use something called the Adams questionnaire. It's kind of a medical survey asking patients of certain symptoms. But the top symptoms that have to do with sexual function are usually the ones that are highly correlated to you actually having low testosterone. And those would be lack of morning erections. And those are important because if you're not getting the blood flow down there, it's going to continuously give you then negative effects in the bedroom, or a lack of further erections, not just in the morning, but when you need them. So erectile dysfunction is another issue, and also the desire to have sex. These are the three kind of main ones that have to do with low testosterone. But there are others more subtle, and once you've hit those three really tough sexual function symptoms, your levels are going to be really, really low in most cases. But there are other symptoms that you can start having, a bit more, I think, lethargy or falling asleep after dinner, or lack of the same drive that you once had. These can start at levels slightly higher than what would be required to have the low testosterone for the sexual function. But everyone's different. So you may have had really high testosterone at one time in your life, and that now has fallen to a point where it's not what it once was, but yet you might still fall within a slightly normal range. And that's a whole nother topic, what the ranges are, because they're not set in stone. They keep changing based on the population is changing. We know that today's men have lower testosterone levels than their granddads did on the whole.
For me, personally, what really pulled me to this was I describe it as I didn't really have that sexual dysfunction side, and I don't mean that as in, I just want to be clear, I didn't have a sexual it just didn't play out like that for me. But what I had was a sense of disconnection from, I would be in conversations and meetings and I would feel disconnected. I would feel tired. After 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was even good night's sleep, I was struggling to keep my eyes open. I struggled with being, do you know what I felt it like? Somebody could tell a joke. I would know it was funny, but I wouldn't laugh. Almost as if my body was disconnected from my brain. And it felt like sometimes I was I would describe it as having cling film wrapped around my head, as in there was a film between me and the rest of the world, and I would think to myself, I'd be driving home going, right, I'm going to get in, I'll do a workout. My brain intellectually wanted to do things, but my body was like going, that'll be a no.
Yeah. So
and that's how it really played out for me, to a point where life was becoming not unpalatable, like where's the nearest bridge, but I was going, my quality of life was becoming so poor because I literally couldn't get involved with it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And that's another symptom that I call brain fog that some patients will have, where things aren't clear, you can't keep focused, and that's kind of falls into the category of, you're not able to perform either at work or in sport like you once were. And these are all kind of symptoms that tie lead to low T. So if a man is suffering from those, the best thing to do is get a blood test. Let's see where your levels are. Let's discuss it with our case manager and the doctor, what those symptoms are, and possibly treatment if that's required. I mean, if you can do lifestyle changes, or making sure you get enough sleep, and once all those are sorted, if you still have those symptoms, then the treatment can be a really good option.
Well, I'm going to go, because I appreciate you don't want to sort of sit there being a salesman.
Yeah,
so
no, I don't want to. Thank you.
No, I totally get that, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to offer my experience, which was when I took my first injection, other than the fact that I was sat there with a needle for the first time going, and now I do it with the greatest of ease, with a little bit of familiarity. But what happened for me was, when somebody says, so what did it do?
Yeah.
I go, well, there was no sense of it actually taking me into an enhanced state of anything. What it did was, it just allowed me to feel like I was at the level I should be operating at. And what I mean by that is if I have a bad night's sleep, for whatever reason, I'm still going to be tired.
Yeah.
If I don't exercise, I'm still going to be flabby and overweight. But because the brain fog and the desire, the intellect, as in I want to, and then I feel okay, I can go and do that.
Yeah.
Actually, what was happening was I did start to exercise again, and I did start to notice that actually my muscle density was enhanced, not like bodybuilder stuff, but just I wasn't. It was giving me that sense of being, this is how, as a 50-year-old man who is now exercising 3 or 4 times a week, I didn't get bigger, I didn't get more veiny, but I was just, it made sense that, I would now look like a relatively healthy human being who can now act, but I'm still 50, so it didn't enhance me, it brought me to what a healthy 50-year-old man should be operating at, and I think that actually doesn't sound a lot, but it was a game changer.
Absolutely, and it has been for lots of other men, myself included. And I think we're just trying to spread the word, because the dose matters. If you're on a therapeutic dose of testosterone, you're replacing what your body doesn't make enough of, and you're trying to kind of level off the quality of life to where it would have been had your levels not dipped. I mean, obviously we're all getting older. It doesn't stop every bit of aging, but I find that it does help quite a bit, and more than if you just, I think, would let nature take its course. Of course, you've entered this state because you did have a medical condition called testosterone deficiency.
So tell me where does a man start to, when's he at his peak, and in terms of having testosterone, and when, being in your 30s, and of course there'll always be outliers, but generally speaking, when somebody's in their, if you just looked at most 50-year-olds or most 40-year-olds, would you be able to say, look, if you give me 100 people in a room, I would guarantee you that at least X% are not feeling quite right because they're in their 40s, they're in the 50s.
Yeah.
What starts to happen?
So I think the testosterone levels peak, obviously, to puberty up to 18 to probably the early 20s. and then they start dropping. I can't remember, it's like 3 to 4% each decade thereafter. Theoretically, I mean, in the past, we've even seen some older men who got blood tests just for the sake of getting blood tests, finding that their levels were actually higher than they thought they were. And even the free test, and that's the other thing we have to decouple is there's the testosterone total, then there's also the kind of bioavailable testosterone, or the free testosterone is the next level that you look at. And that's really what matters the most, because we have seen men who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s even, that have a really surprisingly high level of testosterone total. But if you look at your binding protein, the SHBG, that could be also very high. And then when you look at the calculated free testosterone, that could be very low. And that's the free testosterone, which is maybe determining what symptoms older men will have. But so the levels not only drop as far as the total levels, but then also your free testosterone can also drop as you get older. So when you're younger, the amount of binding protein, SHBG, and the amount of free is lower, and the amount of free testosterone is higher. And as you get older, the SHBG starts to increase. That's just a function of age, but there are other things that could accelerate it, such as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or even alcoholic fatty liver disease can cause the SHBG to rise, as well as not diabetes, but as well as I think certain diets can cause it to rise. Diabetes, actually, you'll end up having a lower SHBG, but generally aging brings the SHBG level up, and we tend to see men as they get older who have less free testosterone as well as less total. But sometimes, like I said, there are men who have a decent amount of total, but the free is really, really low, which puts them in the category of having testosterone deficiency.
And is there again, there's always outliers, but can somebody in their 20s, that to me, I might, as an outside person, just go, well, if you're in their 20s, you're fine, aren't you?
Yeah, it's...
what's the reality of that?
There are more and more young people that are coming in complaining of low testosterone symptoms, and with blood tests on both types of levels, total, free, to match. And I just did a video on our YouTube channel about in kind of environmental toxins and things that might be lowering testosterone, exposure to these things.
So plastics and
things like that. Pesticides, phthalates, forever chemicals that come from plastics. They're all circulating about, which may be one of the causes of the low testosterone. One of the doctors I just had on, he's like, without a doubt, these are... the combination of which are called endocrine disruptors, and they come in many different forms. These may be contributing to these lower levels, even in younger men, even as in the womb. They say they find microplastics in the womb. So it's no wonder we're seeing younger men with low testosterone issues. So
I've definitely been reading just vicariously, just various pieces of information and listening to certain podcasts, and plastics is this, from the fact that it's so around, it's in packaging and the water bottles, whatever it is, and these kind of microplastics that I've heard things that you can take on board the equivalent of a credit card of plastic, every couple of days, and again, I don't know how true that is, because who the heck am I? But even if you said a month, I'd be like, that's a lot. What, a credit card a year I get? That seems like an awful lot. Yeah, well, so even if it's out a bit, there's a lot of differences in the world from 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and where we're going now. And
I suppose
I'm not surprised to hear that.
100 years ago, the biggest diseases were, you die from infection. Or something that antibiotics can cure. Now it's these long-term diseases like diabetes, but some of it you wonder if it's being led by testosterone deficiency. Anyway, about the plastic thing, it's quite funny. I sometimes would have prosciutto with my eggs in the morning, and they just put these little thin plastic films in there. And I could have sworn one time I had a bite, and there was a bit of plastic kind of bundled up within the fat of this. So I mean, it's everywhere. And then you get paranoid, like, oh, did I swallow plastic inadvertently? What's in my gut? And you think about the poor fish that are swimming, swallowing loads of plastic.
Yeah, it's so I guess the thing for me is and I don't know how, you may not wish to talk about this, so when I ask you this, if you kind of go, oh God, that's a can of worms, I'll bring it up, which is so I found when I approached my doctor, on a couple of occasions, even though they were lovely and I did the blood tests, they said, nope, fine. And I remember going on 2 occasions, but I'm not fine.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing here in your bloods. And I went, The only reason I'm challenging that is I know what good normally feels like.
Yeah.
And this isn't it. And they weren't being awkward, they weren't being obstinate, but they legitimately didn't see it as an issue.
No, they don't.
And I just wonder why that might be. And I see a lot of people going, my doctor didn't really even want to have a conversation with me about TRT.
I think, 1, they're not trained. 2, they're still kind of stuck in the past and kind of equating testosterone with prostate cancer or some other things that have shown not to be the case at all, especially the work done by Abraham Morgenthaler about the saturation model of testosterone, where there's a saturation point, and that the data shows the only link between testosterone and prostate cancer are those men with the lowest levels of testosterone had the greatest risk of the more malignant forms of prostate cancer. So that was interesting because and he basically looked at the old data that was published in the 40s that created this myth around the danger of testosterone in the medical community, and it was based on 2 patients. We actually went to the raw data in the libraries in Harvard, and it's like you can't base this science on 2 patients, and that's when it's been rethought. And so doctors still have that in the back of their head. That could be one. I think it's changing. I mean, just the other day, we had a patient that was referred to us by indirectly by an NHS GP, because the NHS GP said, "Oh, we can't help you, but why don't you go to Balance for Hormones?" It's a true story. I was really, really pleased to hear that. But I think the NHS, we've heard all sorts of things, like the NHS made a mistake by treating all women on HRT. They don't want to make the same mistake with TRT because of the cost to the system. Okay, but they'll do gastric band surgeries, I suppose, to work down the road, because I don't think the NHS works under prevention. Years ago, I worked at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, and I was part of I think it was a Cleveland Care Quality program where we measured patient satisfaction. And I was actually the one sending out the letters and assessing that. And the whole point was about preventing. So if you can look at the quality of care, a big part of the quality of care was how do you prevent disease? And so treatment, at least in the United States, at least in some parts, was based on how do you prevent more expensive costs to the healthcare system by doing it through prevention. And I think testosterone replacement therapy and HRT, to a certain extent, is a form of prevention. But the NHS doesn't practice prevention, and so we get all the time men who are turned away by their NHS GP, either out of ignorance, usually out of ignorance. But like I said, we were surprised and quite pleased that I think it's starting to change, and NHS GPs, because their hands are tied, are now referring patients to us.
And, when I look at the suicide rate in men compared to women, which is, I think it's 3 times higher. I thought we just, for some people, it won't be part of that story for them at all. But I would probably say says obviously the medical expert here. So
no, that's all right.
This is bro science at its finest. But what I would probably argue is that in a not insignificant amount of men, it is a factor in how they feel. Now, to what degree that would be for any individual, I do not know. What I notice is that for me, I didn't wake up on a Monday and suddenly there was the change. It crept up on me, and it probably took a couple of years of me then realising, what's been happening, because I think it was so incremental that it kind of caught me out. And I do see, at 53, dealing with execs who are usually in their 40 and upwards kind of space, I do see people who are tired, and their energy, their motivation, their will, their drive, they put it down to workload, and they put it down to the stress of the job. Of course, those things are true. However, almost as the seniority in the role grows and the stress grows, these individuals are often, I think, having this physical decline.
Yeah.
To which, if they were in their 20s and they had the experience to handle where they are, the energy would be there, they'd just be up for it, they'd be. But I think there's a link, and I think a lot of people are misappropriating life stress.
Yeah.
To actually something that if they had something like this, they'd be much more capable of dealing with it. I don't know how that resonates with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were studies I'd come across where, men who are executive CEOs tend to have higher levels of testosterone than others. And testosterone improves your cognitive abilities. And maybe if they've had higher levels of testosterone in the past and they approached it with their GP and they said no, that shouldn't be the end of the story, because there may not be the level that they need to function at. And as we mentioned, the reference ranges are skewing downwards because like other toxins or many different reasons. And as a result, whatever the known reference range is now, at least what the NHS is willing to treat, is far too low, only reflective of the society being quite poorly in the area of testosterone. So as a result, they don't get treated on the NHS. But you're right. If you want to perform in your job as an executive, having all the benefits of the testosterone from like I said, the lack of brain fog, you improve the brain fog, you improve your cognition, you can improve your health and wellness and your motivation at the workplace and back at the gym, which is important. I always say exercise is part of a healthy lifestyle. Then yeah, you need to be at the top of your game. And if you're deficient in testosterone, where your body's not receiving the testosterone it once did, then it's something that ought to be considered, at least looked into.
Okay. So if somebody, just walk me through the process, which I think we lightly touched on it, but if somebody's just sat there going, I don't feel right, and they reach out to you because, they have that suspicion that something may not be quite there. Just what Bob rings you up or sends an email to you. What happens next, Mike?
So, once we gather that information, find out that you have interest, you think you have these symptoms, we would book you in with one of our case managers. Now, some of our case managers are ex-doctors, ex-nurses, ex-TRT advocates, where they're very clued up in the industry, and they can work as a patient advocate. So they're not your doctor, but they're very knowledgeable. They don't provide medical advice, but they give you that support. They listen, hear what's going on. They help collect all the information you need to go to the next step. And usually, either before that conversation, we can send you a blood test, so that when you have that conversation, there's some real data in front to discuss. Or if you're unsure, you can have that conversation with the case manager and then have your blood test done after. Now, you need 2 blood tests to assess it. After the age of 40, some of the data says that the diurnal rhythm isn't as important. I think traditionally you look at the morning levels in younger people, because testosterone tends to be higher in the morning and falls down in the evening. But usually after the age of 40, that could be anywhere, all over the place. So we usually say, according to the guidance, let's get a blood test about before 11 a.m. in the morning. And we need 2 of them because it can be you just had a bad night's sleep. But if this has been consistent, more than likely you've contacted us for a reason. You didn't just say, I had a bad night's sleep, I think my testosterone's low, I'm going to call balance for hormones. More than likely, this has been going on and on and on for some time, or you've come across this thought or this concept of low testosterone and you want to see if that's your issue. So once that happens, we get, once we know we've got 2 blood tests, it meets the criteria for most of the doctors, then we'll put you in with a consultation for the doctor. After the consultation for the doctor, you can have, you'll get your treatment sent from our pharmacy, and then you get any and all support that you need to deal with the treatment. So if there's any questions about side effects, the doctor's involved in that care. We also have the coaching service that they can answer some questions that you have and kind of be your advocate between you, the doctor, and the team. So it's quite a unique thing that we do with the TRT coaching. We know some people hire coaches separately for other reasons. We built that into our service. So,
and what is it? so somebody's going to be listening to this, and they've come across it or they're resonating. So you might be the next best step for them, and they think, "Ooh, is that it? Is it a couple of weeks that you're on it? A couple of months that you're on it? The rest of your life that you're on it? How does that play out?
I think I'm so ingrained in the culture of TRT that it's just part of it's for life. I mean, there are some people that have this notion that I'll just do it for a little bit, but that's not really how it works. There's some people who think, I got to this certain point, I did my exercise, it motivated me to do that, and they stop, only to return again because you really had low levels in the first place. And I would say the vast majority of cases, people really don't just drop out. Once they've realized they've come to this point, they really don't want to go back to where they were. It's not that you can't stop, it's just many of the benefits that you'll see will gradually over time dissipate, and you'll probably return to your past. So hopefully that's not the case. But if you were low and deficient as an adult in mid 40s to 50s, the likelihood of you just having the testes of a 20-year-old again are quite minimal. I mean, maybe when stem cell treatments come out, it may help with that, but essentially from the point of TRT onwards, you're not under your own steam per se. You're under the steam of the testosterone treatment, and that's not a terrible thing. But it's one of those things that men should be aware of, as being on TRT can also can diminish your fertility whilst you're on it, but doesn't mean it has to. There are ways to minimize that. I think men, maybe in the 40s and 50s, some may still be interested in having children, some aren't bothered, and they just want to crack on. So the HCG I mentioned is just a gonadotropin that kind of mimics what the signal to your testes would normally be, at least to produce testosterone. And having a little bit of this may minimize the atrophy and also may minimize the decrease in sperm count and quality. But that's very individual. The patient would talk to the doctor about that. But there are options, to mitigate that.
So I've interestingly, every now and then, because it's been X amount of years that I've been on it, I have every now and then forgotten to take a jab, and I've realised when I get to the end of the second week, but I've even actually, then I remember once I'd forgotten, then I had a load of work and I drove off to be away for a week, and I thought, bugger, I think I should have taken my jab. And I just started to notice that I was a little bit more irritable. I was getting tired again. I was in a workshop and I was going, God, I'm knackered. And it was very subtle.
Very subtle.
But but I thought, this has only taken about 3 weeks to, in that end of that second week, that third week. I just was very alert to the fact that, I can feel it coming back.
That's actually some men get very anxious about missing a dose, even for a day. And you say, it's, as you've seen, you wait a whole week without. It's not the end of the world. It's not ideal, and you just get on your next injection or your next application of cream, and you pick up where you left off. Right? You didn't revert back. You had some symptoms that came back, and but it's not like the man that's suffering day in and day out with low testosterone without the ability to have that injection or that application of scrotal cream, because then you've got this lifelong low levels. And I liken it to if you were to draw a graph of the testosterone after you inject it, and then after it kind of falls to its nadir, that you would measure that area, and you compare the same amount of time, let's say 2 weeks to a man with normal testosterone production, and measure that area under that curve. And I think you would see a larger area under the curve for the man that's injected the testosterone than you normally would see for the man that's just normally producing low levels of testosterone. So what I'm saying is the benefit is, you're only one injection or one application of cream away from getting out of that hypogonadal state, even if it's temporary, and that it's not so. I mean, it's important that you stay with your treatment on a regular basis, but if something were to happen, life gets in the way, it's not going to derail the whole treatment.
This may be the only time in my life I'm going to say the word hypergonadal and in a conversation, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's got a nice ring to it.
And just, do you, and this is not a loaded question, but I think it's worth people hearing, Do you say yes to everybody?
No. There are some people who are not good candidates for treatment. Some people don't qualify. Some people who might have other health complications that need to be sorted first, before that's looked at, along with working with their GP. So no, it's not for everyone, and we have to look at every case individually. But there are some contraindications for treatment in some men, and we just have to look at everyone individually.
So listen, I'm alert to sort of people's attention spans on when they're listening to podcasts like this, and I wanted to, we've got a relatively substantial podcast now, and I just, the reason I am not willing, that sounds patronising, but the reason I wanted to get you on was I've always found you to be very honest, very transparent. There's a lot of integrity around you, and I think that's relevant to a topic like this, that for anybody that is just listening to this and going, yeah, TRT, I've heard about this, or that sounds like I should maybe just Google testosterone replacement therapy, or go to Balance My Hormones. That's the place to go. But just and if those things resonate, and I just wanted to say, contacting you as an organisation, to anybody that feels, should I take the next step, number one, you're not going to be pulled into a sale where they're going to try and flog your stuff. I think that's key. So it's not, ring them up and don't worry, it'll be with you within 24 hours. There's a bona fide process. They care that you've got integrity, and you want to, I know that you believe in this personally, and you will be looked after, you will be in a safe space, and you will be treated with respect, but it'll also be very honest and very clear and very transparent. And I think, just as a topic, it's not that I'm putting my name to you, but I think it's a topic that should get more exposure, and I wouldn't have asked you to come on if I thought it would damage my brand, or what people might see if they then engage with you and I start getting emails going, Christ, guy, I've just been speaking to those buggers. So I just wanted to offer that, and I think you're doing, I know it is a company, but I also think you're doing something that has genuine value, and is massively important.
No, I appreciate that, and I just want everyone in the UK to know that it's okay that a company does healthcare. It's not unique. I think once all healthcare in the United Kingdom was private, and the NHS has done a fantastic job of providing care at free at the point of care. But there are options, because they can't do everything for everyone. And what they don't do well, we found, is men's health issues, testosterone treatment. And so I founded Balance My Hormones because I wanted a really good option for people. I enjoy this. My background is in healthcare administration. Essentially, I'm doing what I went to uni for all those years ago. I've got an MBA in healthcare administration. And I wanted a really good service that men could look to in this particular area. And I just want to let everyone know that it doesn't have to be a dirty word, having an organisation or a business offer healthcare.
Brilliant. So listen, on that note, I'm going to bring us to a close, Mike. I'll make sure that there's a link and etc. in the description. But Balance My Hormones .co.uk or .com?
.co.uk. BalanceMyHormones.co.uk.
Balance My Hormones. Indeed, BalanceMyHormones.co.uk. Mike, from me, and I'm sure for the people who have been listening, thank you so much.
Thank you, Guy. Appreciate it.
That's it. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please share so others get to hear about us, and subscribe so you keep up to date on new episodes. Also visit livingbrave.com if you want to connect with me and find out more about executive coaching, team effectiveness, and changing culture. Oh, and of course you can buy my book Living Brave Leadership on Amazon. So on that note, see you soon.